if I'm a billionaire and I want to buy there, yeah, I'm buying it. I think it's amazing. But I think I'm overpaying for it at $88 million.
Well, you're overpaying for it. You know who's also overpaid for it? Robbie Williams.
Really?
Robbie Williams overpaid for it at 70 for whatever they bought it for.
Yeah.
And then whoever bought it before that, they overpaid. And you know what? The next person that buys it is going to overpay for it too.
You're 100% right. You know what? We always say this. Like, man, I feel like you might be just around here. Man, these prices are so high. I feel like maybe you're overpaying for it. Guess what? Next year, it's more.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the winter markets. And I know we're in May, but we're going to be talking about the upcoming winter market. We're going to be talking about the U.S. wanting to control land purchases within a radius of military bases in the United States. Then we're also going to get into in or out, whether Shawn battles in or out on 3 houses across the United States, including Drizzy Drake's house.
Ooh.
Does anyone call him Drizzy?
I don't.
You don't?
I do not.
What do you call Drake?
Drake.
You call Drake Drake?
Yeah, but I don't talk about Drake much because I just,
The sixth god. You call him the sixth god?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm totally in for that.
All right, Shawn does not call him Drizzy. He calls him the sixth god. Let's start, Shawn. It's May 11th, and a thought occurred to me the other day.
Yeah.
While I was watching no new listings come on, right? A couple new listings have come on, and there are statistics out there in terms of the number of new listings compared to last year. And in some jurisdictions, Shawn, there's actually more supply than last year. But in a lot of jurisdictions, it's down big. So like Alexandria City, active listings down 29% compared to April 2022. Arlington County, down 15% compared to 2022. Fairfax County, down 16%. Frederick County is popping right now. Frederick County down 16% active listings April 2023 compared to April 2022. Now, I bring up the winter market because we're in the spring market right now, and it's supposed to be buzzing. And you ask buyers out there, and there's a lot of activity going on, but there's not a lot of new listings coming on. So, Shawn, if we're not getting a lot of new listings coming on when we should be getting new listings coming on, what's going to happen 4, 5, 6 months from now when we enter those times of the years where everyone knows that there's not going to be that many new listings?
Yeah, I think we're in trouble, honestly. I can't believe how few listings we're getting out there right now. This is spring. This is when everything is popping. We're usually seeing a ton of competition in the listing space. I put 2 on this week, and our team put on, a few over the last couple of weeks, but it's not, thankfully we're busy, but there's not a lot going on. I just looked real quickly, just to see how many were out there, just along right where we live along the orange line condo wise. And there was still only 62 for sale. That's a 1 month of supply, little over a month of supply. So 62 currently active, and that spans from, 5 million down to $300,000 or $200,000. So there's really not much out there. And there were probably 15 of them or 20 over $1 million. So, there's not much to choose from. So what is going to happen as we move forward? And I think, everybody that's selling right now is selling. So what happens at the end of the year when it's going to be slow? We're going to be seeing trickling inventory. I think the good thing is in certain instances, there are a lot of buyers out there, but not as many as we typically see in the spring as well. So while things are churning, they're not churning like they typically do. And so it's really going to be a weird, 2023 is going to be weird,
I got an email from you and also from Bright MLS, May 10th, yesterday. New listings in the Washington, D.C. metro area. There's 5,028, which sounds like a lot, but that's actually down 44.1%, down 44% year over year. Showings are down 23.6%. Closed sales are down 30%. New pending sales are down 26%. it's not really surprising because for the past 3 years, all these numbers, have been, up, right? Like showings have been up, I don't know if new listings have been up, but closed sales certainly up. Median sales price is down 1.5% to $586,000. Shawn, I don't know if I'm worried, but why would anyone sell their house? Why would anyone that has, life needs to happen to people, right? Life, the deeds need to happen, the deaths, the divorces, the new jobs, right? That needs to happen because no one is going to be selling their house just to sell a house. No one's going to be selling their house with a 2.5% mortgage rate to get a 6.5% mortgage rate.
Yeah, it's totally screwed things up. No one wants to sell their house and have to pay so much more for that. If they went and bought their same house, their interest rate is up 3%. So that's why people aren't moving. But the key metric that you were saying here, and this is what I was trying to say, is that listings are down 48%, but showings are down 20-some percent. So that shows you everything is down, but showings are down less than new listings. So it feels like, and things are still churning, but it's not your typical, there's a ton of buyers out there. There aren't a ton of buyers out there as far as our standards are typical, how many we see, because we're seeing that showings are down 20%. But the fact that our listings are down so much further, it seems like there's a lot of competition out there. And, I have been in competition in most of the purchases out there that I'm representing.
Have there been any 2023 transactions where there weren't multiple offers for your buyers or sellers?
Yeah, I mean, the condo market. So the condo market is slower. The single family market, I have not in competition.
Well, I heard from someone that the luxury market is also slower, like the above $3 million range for single family houses is also a little bit slower.
I wish I had, action in that space. I competed against, there was a listing 1.6-ish, competed against 5 other offers. Thankfully we got it, but it went way above. And so there are strong buyers in that million, sub $2 million mark.
Was it worth way above? Are your people like getting a 6.5% interest rate and then looking at the monthly payment?
They bought cash.
So do you think that affected their decision making?
Yeah. The cash, they're not getting a loan, so they don't have to worry about the interest rate.
How long are they going to be there for?
This is their final house.
Do they care about what the house is worth?
No. They do to a point, but I told them, I was like, listen, at this number, if it goes above this, you're overpaying.
But who cares if they're overpaying if they're going to be taken out in a wooden box from the house?
Right. This is their
not to go too
right.
morbid on us.
Exactly. So,
but you know what I mean. Like, who cares if you're paying $10,000 over?
Well, that's exactly it. And thankfully, I was representing them.
No appraisers going in there.
They didn't care, right? I mean, to a certain extent, they wanted the house. When they want the house, you have to show them how to get the house, and so that's what we did. I told them at this point, you're going to be overpaying at this number. And they're like, okay, well, let's go higher than that. So they didn't care. They wanted the house. And that's what people have to understand is certain buyers are going to be completely different than other buyers. And when they're cash and this is our final house and this is the one we want, we're going to pay for it.
Well, we need to remember these cash buyers, Shawn, because when we're on the listing side, it's dangerous to say, okay, well, if it goes for 1.7 and the mortgage interest rate is this, then the monthly payment is that. Whereas the comparable that sold in 2021 had this sales price at this interest. I mean, you could have paid, $10,000 a month in 2021 and like $18,000 a month in like 2022, and it would be like similar house. I don't know if those numbers make sense, but you know what I mean? Where if you're on the listing side, you got to take into account the all cash offers, and some people just don't care what the comps say, that they want the property.
Yeah, it's like, is it a true comp? Because and that's the thing. But our competition was fierce. They did have a loan.
They did have a loan,
but we escalated $10,000 above, and so that's we got it, and we closed basically.
What conversation do you think we're gonna be having in November and December? How's that gonna look?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I'm telling everybody like, hey, the money you're making now, let's put it in the bank. Like, but don't go crazy.
Like, scared money don't make money. Like, are we being scared right now? Because when you start telling people to pinch pennies, and
no, I'm just saying,
the outlook might be.
I'm not saying pinch pennies, but be smart. Be smart with your money. Don't go and, just go blow it because you made, whatever, $30,000. Like, don't go blow the $30,000.
Blow it on the metaverse.
Yeah, right. Like, be smart about your investments right now because we don't know what's going to happen. We're not seeing the inventory where their sales are down. You're not probably going to be selling as much as you did last year. It's just a fact. Everything is down. But how do you gain market share as an agent?
You're talking about real estate agents.
Yeah. So real estate agents, hold on to your money because you don't know how many you're going to sell. Now, what I will say is if you are a real estate agent, spend the money on your marketing. This is the time to take market share by spending that money. But on your personal side, maybe hold on to it a little longer because you're going to need that dollar is going to need to go a little further for you, I think.
Do you think the general public is happy to hear you tell real estate agents that they're not going to have as many deals? Do you think the general public is happy for the upcoming demise of the real estate agent?
Yeah, I think there's probably a high probability or a high percentage of people that are, happy to hear that. But, at the same time, as we see this happen, a lot of real estate agents just leave. So we are going to see the one good thing is, yes, there's less listings, but I wonder how many agents have fallen out. Like if there's a statistic that we could find that said, well, we are down agents by 20% or whatever. And, how many are actually doing transactions and how many have gotten second jobs, So I bet you that's a pretty significant number. As
of April 2023, National Association of Realtors reported that they had 1.5 million realtors, 1.5 million agents.
Yeah.
A part of the NAR. Okay. So
that's
maybe that will go down, maybe not.
We'll see.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. This comes to us from the AP News. This is an interesting story. U.S. to control land sales to foreigners near 8 military bases. Foreign citizens and companies would need U.S. government approval to buy property within 100 miles of 8 military bases under a proposed rule change that follows a Chinese firm's attempt to build a plant near an Air Force base in North Dakota. So it hasn't been, put into law. The Treasury Department's Office of Investment Security is set to propose the rule on Friday, aka tomorrow. The rule would give expanded powers to the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States, which screens business deals between U.S. firms and foreign investors and can block sales or force the parties to change the terms. So basically what happened, Shawn, was in North Dakota near the Grand Forks Air Force Base, which houses air and space operations, there was a Chinese group set to build a $700 million wet corn milling plant. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a farm situation. And that was going to be 12 miles from the Air Force Base. Opposition to the project grew. Some senators got involved, and then eventually the plans went up in smoke because the Air Force said the plant would pose a significant threat to national security. The rule would affect Grand Forks and 7 other bases, including 3 that are tied to the brand new B-21 Raider, the nation's future stealth bomber. So, Shawn, what are your thoughts on government overreach? I know it's one of your favorite topics, the government having control of what people, where and what and how people are allowed. People and companies, we're not just talking about Sean Battle going to North Dakota and buying up a farm. What are your thoughts on the government controlling who is allowed to buy property?
Matt, typically I would be against the government doing anything and telling me who I can and can't sell to. However, this would be the one condition where I completely agree with government overreach in this particular instance. I don't want the Chinese government in some way purchasing property next to our air bases because we know that the Chinese are probably, sneaking around a little bit and trying to get our secrets.
It's just a wet corn milling plant.
Yeah, with eyeballs everywhere. And, they're doing it, man. If they can get in and in any way that they can, we've seen the balloons flying over. They're going to do it. They're going to infiltrate us in any way that they can. And so if they're doing it by business purchases, land near Air Force bases, 100%, I'm backing this. I don't want them. I've heard many stories about them purchasing property. I don't want them purchasing property in the United States because it could go wrong. We just don't want our secrets, our national security at risk. How do you feel about it?
So I read something where if a Chinese company buys land in China and farms land in China, like that's good for them. But if and no one's gonna bat an eye, but if a Chinese company buys land in the United States, and let's just say they are just farming corn, $700 million facility. You're going to tell me that a Chinese company is going to come in here to American soil, farm the land, and then what? Export it back to China, export it around the world, use our land to export to build the Chinese economy. What I'm saying is if China wants to, and I'm all for exports. I'm all for imports, exports. I love Italian food. I love Chinese. I love a lot of different types of foods from all different types of culture. I think it's one of the great things that makes America the way it is. But if you're going to tell me that a country that oppresses the rights of Americans who are in said country, like China does, is going to come in here and spend close to $1 billion setting up shop next to a United States military facility, I'm going to have a problem with that.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be okay with that.
Yep.
Now, where we can, disagree or kind of have a discussion about it is within 100 miles of a base. 100 miles is pretty aggressive. So a lot of these bases, they're in, North Dakota, they're in Iowa. One of them is in Palmdale, California. I don't know where it is. Going to take a guess that a lot of people out there never heard of Palmdale. Well, I did a little as the crow flies. How far away is that? It's like 70 miles from LA. So you're going to tell me that every foreign buyer in LA is going to have their contract reviewed by the government? It's probably not likely. Yeah. But, if we could, batten that down to like 50-mile range, 25-mile range, just some sort of, perimeter around where, there's also the argument of foreign citizens. Like I think Canada's always outlawing, the Chinese or some sort of foreign nation to buy, and they come over to Vancouver, plop down $2 million, and then just leave. They're not contributing to the local businesses. They're not contributing. So that Canada's like, no, we don't want that. So I could be down with some of those, but I think 100 miles is kind of aggressive.
100 miles is probably pretty aggressive, but then again, I don't really want China buying our land. I just shouldn't our land be America's land, right? This is our land. If you want to lease the land, okay, but purchasing it is a whole different ballgame. I don't know how this stuff works, honestly. I'm sure, we own land in all these other places as well, but I wonder what the restrictions are in those countries for us purchasing land or for corporations purchasing land compared to the United States, because sometimes the United States is a little too laxed in my opinion, as far as, letting foreign adversaries come here and set up shop. I don't want that.
Like the embassy of Russia being on a hill in Washington, D.C., overlooking Russia House.
Is that what it is? Is it up on a hill?
Yeah, they bought a property a couple of years ago that sits up on a hill and overlooks D.C.
Perfect vantage point.
Yes.
Yeah. We have to be smarter. We have to clamp down on this stuff. We can't let foreign companies or countries come in here and buy up our farmland. Our farmland this is what we need as a country to be self-fulfilling, right? We don't want to rely on other governments to supply our food, because what's going to happen? Naturally, they're going to supply, but we also, if something happens, need to be able to supply the food for our own people. And so once we start selling our farmland to these corporations, then they can just say, well, we're not, no, you don't get the food. Right?
At like a 10,000 foot vantage point, what's happening is Chinese LLC buying land near military base. It just raises all sorts of red flags. And, I'm not an expert either in land and different countries, but I do know that China is buying up all sorts of land in in Rwanda, in Tanzania. There's some ports over on the eastern side to improve trade. And so China is getting their hands on, some African nations as well, and investing a lot of money into those economies.
Yeah, they're a slow game. They're a slow game. They're doing this. They have a plan, and the plan could take hundreds of years, but they are planning it out, and they're doing little piece by little piece. And they push you so far, and then you push back a little bit, and then they push you again. So they know what they're doing, and I don't trust what they're doing. So I don't know. I'm for this. I'm glad we're seeing that our government is giving a pushback. If the government had any, say in our transactions, then I'd be like, no, of course, like hell no, right? But for a foreign government, I think 100% yes.
What I'm in favor of is foreign buyers buying property to live in as their primary residence. If you're going to tell me you live in China and you're like, hey, you know what? Not for me. I'm going to come over. You got to live in the house. You got to raise your family. You got to, actually be there. You got to be in the dance. Mm-hmm. And I'm on board. But once we start getting into investment properties, second homes, vacation homes, once a month homes, LLCs, farmland, whatever, I'm going to start having some issues.
Well, and those foreign investors have a huge market share in our markets. We saw in Miami remember when during the COVID years, they stopped the foreign investments, and that really hurt Miami. And now they were allowed back in, and now that market is booming again. It's
Didn't
crazy.
They have some like Russian oligarch issues in Miami as well? Yeah. Is that where that was happening?
I can't remember. Oh, but yeah, I mean,
gotta be careful about those too.
Yeah. So, on one standpoint, it does help our economy in having these foreign investors buy, but at the same time, it also increases values and makes it harder for the people of the United States to purchase the properties, because we're getting these rich people come in and push the prices up. So, you can see the good side and the bad side of both of those.
So wrapping it up, there were a few senators, John Tester, Democrat from Montana, and Mike Rounds, Republican of South Dakota, who introduced legislation aimed at preventing China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea from acquiring U.S. farmland. So all of this is in the works, something to watch for, and we'll certainly update you as legislation gets passed or as bills and law gets amended.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it.
Let's move on to in or out, whether Shawn Battle is in or out on 3 houses across the United States. Shawn, coming from Architectural Digest, rapper Drake lists his Tuscan-inspired Beverly Hills estate for $88 million. What's interesting, Shawn, is he's only owned the property for over a year. So Drake bought the property for $75 million from musician Robbie Williams. By the way, I don't know who Robbie Williams is. Do you know who Robbie is? That someone that I should know?
No, apparently we should.
Like if you walk down the street and said, "Do you know Robbie Williams?" Do you think people would know?
No.
Maybe. I don't know if I'm out of the loop. So 19-acre Beverly Hills estate, asking $88 million. Shawn, it's 10 bedrooms, 22 bathrooms, 2,400 square feet. It is in, Beverly Hills, 9904 Kip Drive. It's got everything you need for your Tuscan escape in Beverly Hills. Shawn, are you in or out on the $88 million Drizzy Drake, the Sixth God property?
Can I make him an offer? Can I make him a lower offer? Because I don't feel like it. I think the value probably dropped.
Is it going to be north of $75 million, what he bought it for?
No, it's not going to be north. I'll give him what he paid for it. How long ago did he buy it?
He bought it a year ago.
Yeah, it's not worth anymore. Unless he's done some crazy stuff. I don't know. But maybe, like you were saying, that ultra luxury market is probably hurting. So, I mean, it's gorgeous.
The difference between the $3 million luxury mark and the $88 million luxury mark.
I mean, when you got $88 million and where you got hundreds of millions of dollars, then I don't think 88 million is really going to matter. I think it's beautiful, gorgeous.
You really don't think it's worth $88 million?
It probably is. Yeah, that thing is pretty awesome. All right. I mean, if I'm a billionaire and I want to buy there, yeah, I'm buying it. I think it's amazing. but I think I'm overpaying for it at $88 million.
Well, you're overpaying for it. You know who's also overpaid for it? Robbie Williams.
Really?
Robbie Williams overpaid for it at 70 for whatever they bought it for.
Yeah.
And then whoever bought it before that, they overpaid. And you know what? The next person that buys it is going to overpay for it too.
You're 100% right. You know what? We always say this, like, man, I feel like you might be just around here. Man, these prices are so high. I feel like maybe you're overpaying for it. Guess what? Next year, it's more. You didn't overpay for it. Remember when that was happening? Oh, it was crazy. I'm like, holy cow, these prices are going crazy. Guess what? This year they're higher. You
knew this property was overpriced the second you walked in the door. You knew it was overpaid. You're going to overpay for it. Just like when you sell it, you're going to ask a ridiculous price and someone else is going to overpay for it.
You know why I know it's overpriced? Because of the Zestimate, Matt. I know how secure these Zestimates are. It's on the market and the Zestimate is still saying $74 million. As soon as you put a property on the market, the Zestimate goes up. Why didn't this one go up? Right? I actually had my client this morning. I put a property on the market and his Zestimate went up. And I'm like, that's because they saw our price was, it's crazy. So don't trust those estimates.
I'm in on $88 million. I think it's going to sell.
Place is sick.
For around that amount. And I think so because it's not one of these houses that just gets listed and then withdrawn and then listing. Like we've seen some houses where they're asking $250 million and then the next year it's like $100 million. Then it finally sells for like $70 million. This one, it literally sold last year for 75. So it's clearly worth at least that. And if someone can get 88 for it, I think so. I mean,
do you know why he's selling? I mean, why would he sell in a year?
Dude,
Is he flipping?
Thank you. This was like one of my notes that I was going to ask you. I was going to say, do you think the buyer agent is calling the listing agent and asking, "Oh, so why is Drake selling? Can you tell me? So what's the deal with this house?"
I don't know. They didn't put any money into it.
Yeah. Do you think the agents that are like, "Oh, why are they selling?" Like,
well,
who cares?
His album sales weren't as good this year. So
all right. Well, I'm in, and I'm laughing at any agent that says, "Oh, why are they selling?" Well, I mean, it is only a year after he bought it.
Yeah. And he's how much higher? $14 million.
$14 million.
Man, these money makers.
All right, let's move on to the next property. This is in Washington, D.C. The D.C. house Obama lived in as a senator is for sale. Stanton Park row home before leveling up into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Obama came to Washington in 2005 as a senator from Illinois. He rented a one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill. So, Shawn, this is 227 6th Street Northeast. It is now I think it's still 2 units, but it is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom property listed for $1.28 million. And let's see, it is about 2,200 square feet. Right in Stanton Park, Shawn, are you in or out on Obama's former home for $1.28 million?
Yeah, I think I'm in on this. Good location. It's always going to have that Obama, vibe to it, and it's going to stay that way. And so,
what
I
is
think
the Obama vibe?
Well, just having the fact that one of our presidents lived there for a while, I think is a good thing. It's going to keep its value because of that. It's a story. Every house has a story. This has a unique story. So
Obama, when he lived there, would joke and say that he's the only senator who had a worse apartment than your 25-year-old staff people. What I find interesting is there's no pictures of Obama outside. There's no mention of it. Wouldn't you want to mention Obama lived in this house if you're selling the house?
100%. Yeah.
Why would you not do
at
that?
all?
It's not in there.
That's crazy.
And not in the public remarks.
Wow. Yeah, you got to.
You're going to tell me.
Like we were saying, like Jackie Kennedy,
the president,
right?
A former president, lived in your house.
And you're not mentioning it.
And that's not the first word in the listing description?
It's amazing.
Oh, my goodness. What a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm in on the property. It looks like a standard row home, but I am figuring out a way to draw in some Barack Obama inspiration. I think the landlord said that she still has a check from when Barack Obama paid the lease. I think it was
cool.
$1,500 or something. It's signed by Michelle Obama. So something like that. When she was the landlord, people were saying, "Oh, he's going to be the next president. You need to keep the checks." And she's like, "Oh no, no way. That's not going to happen." And lo and behold,
sure enough, those would be worth something. That should be framed inside you should get a framed one. If I'm buying it, I want a framed one inside the place. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our last house, Shawn. This is in Cape Cod, and Architectural Digest is going to make me sign in yet again. So, Shawn, in Cape Cod, you can rent a beach shack for $2,000 per year, not per month, but per year. There's about 8 shacks on the beach. So there's 8 shacks on. Good thing I have a memory like a steel trap. There's 8 shacks on the beach. They range in rent anywhere from $2,137 per year for a 150 square foot beach shack in Cape Cod, all the way up to a 560 square foot beach shack that you can rent for $16,000 per year, which breaks down to roughly $1,333 per month.
Wow, look at that math, man.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So there, of course, are strings attached. You have to apply with the National Park Service, with the NPS. And here's the kicker. You have to live in the property. You can't rent it out. You have to do all the maintenance and fixes yourself. And then apparently, these are 10-year leases.
Ooh.
So essentially, a $20,000, you can live somewhere for $20,000 and you can have everything, covered for 10 years. That being said, the properties do convey an as-is, where-is condition. They're in really rough shape, so you might have some issues there. But Shawn, I'm giving you the opportunity to live on the beach. You tell me how much you love the beach. The man loves the beach. For $2,000 a year. Are you in or out?
Oh, man, I have so many questions, Matt. Is there heat in these properties? Do I have to be there? Can I have it as my second home?
You have to live there.
I have to be there.
You have to be there a
of the
significant
time.
amount of time.
Yeah.
You can't not be there for a long time.
Yeah. This is tough. Naturally, I want to spend as little as possible to live on the beach, but I feel like, I could basically have the same thing by being homeless, right? I'll just squat on the beach and, put up a tent and pay nothing and not have that restriction. So for those reasons, I think I'm going to pass on this. I just shack living for me and having to deal with the wind. Imagine how cold it is in that. I mean, this is on the beach, but this is North Beach, right? This is...
Yeah, you're up there.
You're going to freeze most of the time. So I'm out. No, I'm not a fan of cold.
Yeah, I think I was into it until the 10-year lease.
Yeah.
I mean, it can get lonely up there. And they said that there are some pretty noticeable people have stayed in these shacks, like Jackson Pollock, Tennessee Williams, and E.E. Cummings. So maybe if you're working on your memoir or your a novel, that would be the spot to do it. But I mean, it's only accessible by what, 4 by foot or 4x4 vehicles. I mean, you get the wind, you get the ice, you get the cold. I think I'm out.
I think that's a real good way to just drive somebody insane. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, think about where you are. You're basically like living in Antarctica for, alone on the beach, wind. I think it's a good way to write a novel. You could write some crazy stuff up there, but I'm not doing it.
Well, I mean, props to the National Park Service, because
That's
I think
cool
this
idea.
is like a cool creative way to maybe inject some more life into these little shacks if people are gonna fix them up. But unless I'm missing something, a 10-year lease is absurdly long. I don't want to be shackled to a shack for 10 years.
That's why you buy properties, right? You buy properties for 10 years. You don't lease properties for 10 years because, you're missing out on all this value. So, I mean, in 10 years, what could a house been worth?
No one's going to make this a primary residence for 10 years and
Right.
live every single day in this house
No
for
way.
10 years.
No way.
Well, would love to know your thoughts. Be sure to drop them in the comment section below. And for Shawn and myself, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.